Example 8.5.2. First thing I'm going to do is mention this notation at the top here. There was a bit missing in the question. It should have said after x is a member of the real numbers, comma, x does not equal 6. I think that was missed out in the original booklet. It just means x can take any real number except 6. You might want to think about why can't it be 6? Imagine subbing it in, and you'll come across a problem of trying to divide by 0, which is impossible. Right, before I sketch anything, let's write this in a slightly different way. I'm going to let f of x, so not g, I'm using a different letter here, let f of x equal 1 over x, the basic reciprocal graph. So looking at this graph we're about to draw, it is a transformation of the basic reciprocal graph. Let's work it out step by step. So let's look at the x take away 6. Well, that would be f of x take away 6. If I decided to call f of x 1 over x, so then f of x take 6 would be 1 over x take 6, or the reciprocal of x take 6. That would be a translation 6 units to the right. I'm now going to introduce the 4. So that is going to be 4 lots of f of x take 6. So that's 4 times 1, which is 4 over x minus 6. And then finally, there's a plus 5 on the end. Not in the numerator, but separate from the numerator. So that will be 4 lots of f of x take 6. And then after we close the brackets, a plus 5. Which gives us the graph we are drawing. Just going to put a box around that. So that helps me to identify the transformations that need to take place. So we've got the minus 6 inside the brackets, translation 6 to the right, and then the 4 multiplying f, that is going to multiply the y values by 4. That'll stretch it in the y direction. And finally, the plus 5 at the end adds 5 to all the y values, so it moves it up by 5 units. Okay, so here is the 3 transformations that we need to do. And we need to start with the original reciprocal graph, 1 over x. Now, it's a good idea to draw the asymptotes first. And there we go, I've drawn the asymptotes. So those are the asymptotes of the original graph. I'm actually going to transform these. Now, I know you wouldn't be able to do that with pen, paper, pencil without rubbing them out, but I'm going to drag these along to show the transformation that I'm doing. So those are the asymptotes of the original 1 over x graph, or the original reciprocal graph. So please be aware, I'm drawing the original graph here, and then I'm going to move it. This is not the final answer. So that's f of x equals 1 over x drawn. Now I'm going to translate that 6 units to the right. So the whole graph, not just the curves, but the asymptotes as well, they move 6 units to the right. So asymptote 6 units to the right, and then the rest of the graph 6 units to the right. The horizontal asymptote won't look like it's moved. So if you move something horizontally, well, if you move a horizontal line to the right, it's still horizontal. Just a quick note about when you're drawing your asymptotes, when they are on the axes, well, like the x axis one is at the moment, make sure you it's visible. So it's thicker than the line underneath it and dotted. If you can't see it, then the examiner's not going to be able to see it either. Make sure it's clearly visible. So here I've made the thickness of the dotted line a bit thicker than the x-axis, and same with the y-axis. So that's the first translation done. Then we get a vertical stretch, scale factor 4. So the y values are going to get multiplied by 4. That doesn't change the shape much, but it does move away, or stretches away from the x-axis. I'm going to rub that out and draw it. So it's pretty much the same shape, but it just stretches away from the x-axis. So not much difference. Just a bit further away from the asymptotes. And then finally, translation 6 units up. So the vertical asymptote, if you move it up, it's still vertical. But the horizontal one, I've just realized I wrote 6 units up. It should have been 5 units up. Corrected that now. So 5 units up, and then the whole graph. So not just the horizontal asymptote, but the whole graph. Now I've got something I need to work out here. I'm moving my graph up. If you look at where it's going through the y-axis, when I've finished moving it up, will it go through the positive y-axis or the negative y-axis, or even the origin? Well, we don't guess, we work it out. So I'm going to just take it back to where it was, and I'm going to work it out. Will it go through the positive x-axis or the negative x-axis? We also need to label any points of intersection with the axes, like the question said. This bit here, we need to label points of intersection and the asymptotes as well. So a little bit of working out required. So where does it go through the y-axis? Well, when x is 0, y is going to be 4 over 0, take away minus 6, and then plus 5. So that's minus 2/3, add 5. Which is 13/3. So when x is 0, y is 13/3. It goes through the positive y-axis. 13 over 3 is a positive number. So now I can finish my translation. Still got a bit of working out to do. That's where it's going to end up. I'm just going to draw that a little bit neater now. This is my final curve. So to draw it quite close there, positive y-axis heading towards the asymptote, and similar in the other one. So my graph's going to stay there now. If you're drawing this in your book, that's how your final graph should look. We've just worked out when x is 0, y is 13 over 3. We now need to work out where does it go through the x-axis. So when y is 0, so 0 is 4 over x, take 6, add 5, and rearrange that to find x. So take away 5 from both sides. Multiply both sides by x, take 6. I'm going to now divide both sides by minus 5. And then add 6 to both sides. So we end up with 6 take away 4/5, which is 30 over 5, take away 4 over 5, 26/5. of 5.2. So x is 26 over 5 when y is 0. I knew from the graph it would be a positive x value, and that's what I got. If I'd got a negative x value, then something is definitely wrong, either my graph or my working out. One thing we haven't quite done yet, label the asymptotes. So that's a good habit to get into. Before you finish a question and move on, just look back at the question. Have you forgotten to do anything? Well, I haven't yet labeled the asymptotes. So the horizontal one, it used to be on the x-axis. It got moved up by 5 units. So now it is the line which has a y value of 5 everywhere on it. In other words, y equals 5. So I'm just going to change that to red. So the equation of the horizontal line is y equals 5 because every single point on that line has a y coordinate of 5. Now the vertical one, it used to be the y-axis. It's been moved 6 units to the right. So every single point on that vertical line has an x value of 6. So it's the equation of the line is x equals 6. And that's the end of the question.